let's go ahead and jump in here. Toolkit Tuesday, as I said, is a new video program that we're trying to offer to connect event planners, industry peers, and share and learn. This will be a weekly program. It's complimentary. We hope you continue to join us. We are all in the gathering business, and I don't know about you guys, but I feel like we've taken a direct hit these last couple weeks in the ability to gather people. And so we're here today for this Toolkit Tuesday to share our event planning team's experience around one of large scale state association that we had to cancel and turn into a virtual event. So I want to assure you that you don't have to take a ton of notes. We will produce a post-recording document with all of the tips that we have here today. So we really want to encourage active listening. And again, feel free to ask questions and we'll get to those as we can. You know, video technology is not new to us. We all watch TV, we Netflix and chill, we binge watch. Video's been around a long time, and I gotta tell you, being 30 years in the business, we've used live stream, we've used video capture. What's interesting is that I would say from our perspective, it wasn't necessarily on the forefront. We created a live event, we ordered chicken, we had name badges, we really were trying to think through the guest experience when they were physically at the venue. And then yes, ultimately, depending on the client, we would offer a live stream capability for people to join us remotely. And we would rely on our technology partners to assist us with that. We would literally, you know, talk a little strategy, but really let them do what they do best to set up the camera at the right angle, get the right lighting, figure out the right platform, help us with attendee access to that particular stream, prepare the files for post-event distribution. You know, we really leaned heavily on them, and we will continue to do so. But I think what's interesting, I think event planners are now being asked to be virtual event planner experts. So you really need to understand how to deliver your entire show and all the benefits of a live event through a virtual platform. I think that one of the things that is interesting too is that this is a very fast moving situation, and we are nimble by nature. I think the events business is used to being thrown a curveball, but this was a big curveball. And so let me jump into this scenario here. We had a state association, 800 people had registered to come to Bellevue, Washington, very close to the epicenter of what's going on, and have all the events, keynotes, meals, 6-7 breakouts at one time for a full day. So about a week before the event, the board gathered and we had a discussion about whether we should cancel the live event. This was much before the government putting any sort of bans on gathering. So we're having a discussion about what is the impact if we choose to cancel. And so one of the things I want to talk about are the things that we had to consider. First and foremost, it's a nonprofit state association. We had to consider the financial implications, and I'll get into that a little bit later about how that fleshed out. We had to consider, obviously, the attendees' safety. Let me back up. That was number one, attendees' safety. The ability for us to create a safe environment for people to gather and have no negative repercussions for being in the same space. And we had to consider our sponsor partners and what they had purchased at the live event, and how are we going to work with them to take this to a virtual scenario. The educational components. This was a state association that had a huge offering of continuing education credits. The attendees would receive 8 credits for their registration investment. And as we know, people pay for continuing education credits, and that was a big value for our attendees, those credits. We had to consider the venue and what their positioning was. You know, had we decided to go full steam ahead and the venue said no, we would have had to react. So there was a lot of decision factors. So the board gathered. We decided to take the entire event virtual. And we had approximately less than a week, about 3 business days to do that. So we started initially with what were our goals going to be on the virtual platform? Just like you would with a live event, identifying our goals. What could we accomplish in a virtual setting with only a week to get this together. And we outlined what we really wanted to measure, as far as we wanted to, see how many attendees we were able to retain by going virtual. With 800 attendees, we wanted to track those numbers. We wanted to see the quality of the content delivery and get feedback on that, and figure out if we were able to do this with this tool, which, as we know, we are, but there was some concern what the experience would be like for the guests trying to learn in this atmosphere. So we set out our goals, and then the first thing we started to create was a communication plan. We started with all of our stakeholders, the attendees, the speakers, the sponsors, and of course the vendors that were executing the event. And we had to have a communication plan for each of those stakeholder groups. We went first to the sponsors, first to the venue to let them know and to get that conversation going. We went to the sponsors to let them know we were going to make an announcement that it was going virtual, and that we would be in touch with them to discuss their benefits package as a virtual event. And then we went directly to the attendees. And I'll say one of the most interesting things was the responses that we got were so varied, because remember, when we announced it, we were not under a ban. So there was a lot of opinions about whether that was a good move, from both attendees and speakers and sponsors, many in support of it, and many feeling like they were very upset they weren't going to get a live experience. So it was a challenge for our team to monitor all of those, the messages that were sent and the replies that we got back, because they were varied. One thing that we shared with the attendees, first and foremost, was we were trying to mitigate the cancellations because of it going virtual. And what was interesting is we took an interesting twist, that they would receive 8 continuing education units by attending, and by going virtual, they were going to be able to receive 24 CEUs, because now that they're not sitting in one room, they could actually consume all 24 sessions. And so they were getting 3 times the value of their initial registration investment. So that was something that we chose to promote and reinforce, that this in fact was a value add for the attendees. As I said, the speakers were fairly open to this. They were okay with sitting in their own offices and not getting on a plane, and still delivering the same PowerPoint and the same content for their session. So, but again, there were some additional things that had to happen with the speakers, and I'll get into that. The sponsors, again, varying opinions about this. Because we were a week ahead of the ban, many sponsors were upset to not have the ability to shake hands and meet new people, build a network, and create leads for their company. That's the investment they made with their sponsorship dollars, was to fill their lead pipeline. And now they weren't getting the opportunity to do that. That's what they felt like. And so that was our challenge in doing that. Managing the incoming emails, again, not only with people voicing their opinion, but fielding refund requests. I'll say what was interesting. We had less than 10% of the attendees cancel and ask for a full refund. We had only 1 sponsor out of 20 ask for a full refund, and they were at the lowest investment level. It was quite interesting. And then we had a venue that was working with us to discuss how we handled the cancellation fees and how that would hit a state association nonprofit. I think that what I would say as a best practice is that you need a team member in each of these lanes. You need someone to own the relationship with the venue and have that conversation, move it forward. You need someone to own the attendee messaging and fielding those inquiries. And then you want to make sure that you have someone on point to deal with the relational part of the sponsorship. I'm gonna take a quick pause. I see a question in here. Did the cost stay the same for virtual attendees? Yes, it did. And as I mentioned, we were able to offer 3 times the value in their educational delivery. So we didn't get a ton of pushback about that. And obviously, because we were doing virtual now, they had enough lead time to cancel their hotels at no cost. They managed their own travel, and there wasn't, I think, a big hit. One of the lessons might be that the earlier you make a change, the more time you have to react. 3 days doesn't sound like a lot to most people, but as we know in the event business, it was enough time to make sure we could kind of plan and unplan and replan this event. Okay, the budget impact. What was interesting as we did the scenarios with our client, if we had held the event live, they would have taken an enormous financial hit due to the people that were not coming and canceling, and the speakers would not have been able to participate because they couldn't physically get there. When we did a scenario of the virtual, they really ended up in a much better financial position. It was interesting. So my suggestion is to take your budget and run several scenarios around how the cost will fluctuate depending on how you're delivering the event. Because it was really eye-opening. And then interestingly enough, we had a very gracious venue that we had not decided where to take the event the following year. We had 2 or 3 venues in consideration, and we brought to the table as a bargaining chip and a leverage the 2021 event. And if we brought this back to you and we signed the contract now for 2021, would you consider relieving us from some of this cancellation policy? Again, we're a week out. They hadn't ordered the chicken. They had not staffed. We had $70,000 in audio visual. That was not going to happen. So we had an enormous savings there. And then with the platform, because they were a certain business, many of them had an enterprise level subscription to GoToWebinar. That was the tool that was used for this event. And so they did not have an impact of a huge cost center around the virtual delivery platform. That's not to say that you won't have costs associated with going virtual. In this scenario, they had the platform at the ready. What they did have to do was get additional licenses, and I will say, GoToWebinar was very gracious to offer. Given the scenario, they offered several additional licenses for us to do 6, 7 breakouts at one time. Okay, so on the budget side, make sure you run the scenarios. Take every cost center associated with your event. We didn't print a hard program. That was a huge line item. We didn't have AV. We didn't have guest rooms for the board that, tens of thousands of dollars of hotel stays that we now did not have. So do every line item, take that out to each scenario. When we did the scenarios, we had a kind of a good, better, best around lost revenue. We did, what if 10% cancel of attendees? What if 50% cancel? What if half of our sponsorship money goes away? So again, kind of really thinking through every scenario and looking at the bottom line each time we updated that Excel sheet. We put a fat 0 and said, what if none of our sponsors come back? How will that impact the bottom line? Let's talk about the sponsor relationships. As we know, the event relied on sponsorship dollars to produce the show and cover the costs and make money. So if you take all your event costs, you divide them by the number of paying attendees, you get a per person price on your event. Oftentimes it's considerably high to produce the show and push all those costs per person onto the ticket, the registration fee. So we pursue sponsor funding to help cover the hard costs and make the tickets affordable, and to be a revenue source at an event. And the theory is where more than one are gathered, people will pay to be there. So you have a communal audience that you've brought together in live or virtual, and people are willing to pay to have access to them because they have a shared target audience. So we presented a list of benefits to these sponsors. They wrote the check. They were planning to be at the Hyatt in the Bellevue for this meeting last Friday. We conducted, and I say we, personally, I conducted 20 conversations with our sponsors. Courageous conversations about, we are a state association. We need your sponsorship funding to support the programs, not only the event, but the programs throughout the year. Will you give us some time to go back and show you new benefits, new delivery systems on what we've promised you. Full accountability. You bought a live event, we can't deliver one. Not right now. You bought an opportunity to put stuff in a swag bag. Here's what we're proposing. We're going to do a direct mailing to all of the attendees with all of the stuff you sent us for your promotional material. Check that box, right? We're able to deliver on that. You bought the ability to have leads. We are sending everybody the attendee lists with a little bit more information than we typically do to allow you to do your own direct marketing. And frankly, if I were you, I wouldn't go hardcore on the sales. I would come in with we're sorry we didn't get to shake your hand and see you at SHRM, but we have solutions you might want to consider. So they were very open and the dialogue was strong. I had some sponsors come to us and offer ideas that they were experiencing from other events that were delivering new benefits. We are pursuing the possibility of a virtual trade show. There's amazing tools out there to have a fun event that's live or that's virtual and live where people can connect with a buyer-seller type thing. Everybody knows the passport scene around a trade show. This virtual trade show has the ability to have people be incentivized to visit all of the information virtually from each attendee or each sponsor, and then check that off of some kind of a passport and be entered to win type thing. So we have to market the virtual event. We have to prepare the back end with all the sponsors' information. And then we have to incentivize people to visit all of the attendees that are in the virtual trade show. So learning this live with you guys, I'll keep you posted on how it goes. But the other thing we've done is the board decided to have a social event, probably push that into late summer and let everybody, all the sponsors come for free and network. It might be a smaller in-person audience, but for many of our sponsors, 1 or 2 good contacts offers a great return on investment. You know, we're a state association, the investments for sponsors are not hundreds of thousands of dollars like other shows. So we can do this. The conversation was the top level sponsor saying, we've been involved with this organization for years. We are considering our investment a sunk cost. Do with it what you need to. We'll be back next year. Again, lowest level sponsor saying, cut us a check by tomorrow. You know, just really not having it. I'm not getting what I bought. Send me my money, which we prepared for financially. But most people said, we'd like to try the new benefits, and then we would also like to have some consideration at next year's live event, whether it's an upgrade to the next sponsor level, whether it's partial, you know, just accredit my money to next year so I don't have to pay next year. Some could not do that because of their budgeting cycle, just kind of a cross gamut. But my tips for you about that is to be transparent, over communicate, so they really have a full understanding of the picture that you're up against. Acknowledge that they are there for lead generation and contacts, and then be creative about the new benefits and solutions you can offer. And I've told all of them, if we get to the end of the new benefit delivery and you say, I didn't get one lead, it's not working, then we'll have a financial conversation about refund or apply to next year. Let's go to the logistics of making this happen. So we've let everybody know. We've had varying responses. We're trying to react with, you know, the venue partnership and those cancellations. We're trying to manage our budget scenarios. Now we have to get into execution. So as I mentioned, this particular client had the ability to use a certain platform because they already were engaged with them and they had that service available to them. We had to secure enough licenses, enough channels to be able to do multiple things. We had to have training calls with every speaker. So when you go virtual, and I will say this because I'm being vulnerable and I'm being the guinea pig, you're now putting the technical control in the hands of a speaker, and they're reliant on their tech tools, their laptop, their sound, their ability to move around inside of the desktop. You're also putting the event, the content is in their hands, you know, and so you have to rely on their tech, their physical technology pieces, and then their knowledge of technology. And there was a big gap there. So we had amazing speakers that were prepared to stand on a stage and deliver a great presentation. And now we're asking them to become technically savvy enough to execute a conference through a virtual platform. So we conducted, every single speaker went through a training with us of how to share their desktop and how to field questions. And it was time consuming, but really important. And then we developed a speaker do's and don'ts tip sheet, real simple. It had pictures of screenshots of what they were going to see when they logged in. You know, just really kind of think of yourself as now your job is to be a manual writer, you know, writing a technical manual, and keep it super simple. And just, we had steps like 1, 2, 3. This is, you don't want to break it. So just do 1, 2, 3 and you're good. The other thing we had was a session moderator, which was an internal association team member that had to be trained up on the technology. And we had to give them a script of how to moderate a session. So we wanted the speaker to be able to deliver their content without too much worry about what was happening with the attendees. So the in-session moderator was able to field questions, and they had a script to refer to, and they had access to our team in case they got asked something they didn't know. Then we had our team be the technical monitors. That's what I would call them. They were monitoring each session. They were running the controls. They, you know, weren't as worried about what was being said as opposed to what people could see and if people could hear. And then each of those, we had 6 of those on our team, all assigned to a track, and they stood there. We got together actually in a war room, and they all had monitors, extra monitors. We had an extra laptop in case somebody's broke and we had to join in and take over that technical monitor's job at, you know, during the day. So it was very layered. And I would say that just like you would at a live event, we had a lot of people assigned to different tasks to make sure that, but we had to then communicate with them what their task was and what the resources were for them there to do their task. I got a question. Did you do the training as a group or individually? The training for our technical monitors was as a group. The training for the speakers was one-on-one, because we wanted to get into their session. We had to, does that make sense? You guys find value in the understanding the prep that went into making sure the person who had a role understood the role and understood the resources they had if something went off the rails? Because again, kind of first time out there on the Wild West, so we weren't sure what we were going to encounter. So we tried to layer up the backup plans, and just like you would at a live event. The virtual event tips, we definitely upload as much content onto any virtual platform ahead of time as possible. And the biggest tip of today is test, test, test. I mean, we found out from here as the Toolkit team that, you know, one of the links we put out in the email was not working, but then we found a different link where it was direct to the meeting. You know, so it's just, there's a lot to learn. We're getting up to speed technically very, very quickly out of necessity. So if you don't know, ask the experts, but if, you know, test, and then it will give you peace of mind. Just like you would do a technical rehearsal at a live event where you actually turn on the lights, camera, action to see if the stage is too bright and all of that. You just have to take that same testing mindset into your virtual experience. We had, during the session itself, when we were live or virtually live, I don't know how to use that term. We laugh, we actually say it's not live at all, but it is live. It's live, it's happening real time on a virtual platform. We had someone monitoring the inbox for the association to field what we thought would be primarily access issues. I can't find the link. Where's my meeting invite? You know, how do I get to the show? So they were almost like Reg with directional signs. There's the ballroom. Here's how you get here. So we had those folks in ready to go. Then we had the technical monitors watching all of the chat and fielding questions of, hey, Jane can't get in, her computer's locked up, all of that, right? So we're fielding all of those questions real time. We wanted to make sure that we were active on social media, saying, hey, the keynote's about to begin. If you've forgotten, here's the link, here's how you get in. Oh, we're so excited. You know, Susie is talking now and she's doing great. Join us this way. So have someone monitoring that social media conversation. We started all the sessions with the speakers 30 minutes early to just again, troubleshoot anything that the speaker might have had. We had a, I don't know what communication tool your teams use, but we had Slack fired up between our internal teams because we had about 4 people in the room, and then we had 4 people working remotely being the technical monitors. So we were on Slack and text, but mostly the group communication tool of Slack to just, hey, someone in my session doesn't have a microphone, as whatever the scenario was, we were able to, as a team, crowdsource answers of how to address it. We had a team member that could post a best practice. Hey, if you do this and click here, it'll have a better brightness or something like that. So keep your team connected just like you would on site at a live event with radios or group texts. We had a specific monitor that showed us the user experience. So make sure you're not all in your back-end administrative views and roles. Make sure somebody's looking at it from what the users see and hear. We had an MC that was really great. She added a lot of lively commentary and energy to the before and during and after, kind of weave the messaging, so I recommend that. We recommend getting hold music for the Q&A sessions. Some of these amazing platforms allow you to do a lot of polling and different features that you may not use in a live event. There are polling options for live, but if you're not using those now that you're in virtual, you might have a lot more ability to do that and get some amazing data. And so you want to make it fun and engaging. We had a session where the speaker was not comfortable being on their webcam, and we lost a lot of, I think, the engagement factor, not being able to see somebody. So when possible, my recommendation would be to make sure that they can see the content of a slide as well as the person who's speaking. We got deep into the first session when we started thinking, what is our speaker timer solution here? How are we going to give them the hook? And they're busy again, looking at their screen, looking at the chat box, and we're just like, how do we actually get the hook and give them a 5-minute warning and then a wrap signal? So we had to solve for that, and we did, and it really worked. We had a little flashing thing that we could send to them, and they saw that it was time to wrap it up. Close to what I'm getting right now, as I keep this to about 30 minutes. We had prepared questions and answers in case it was video silence, audio silence when the speaker asked questions. One thing that I think is interesting is creating a background for your speakers, or just giving some guidelines that they're not in their pajamas and they don't have a dog behind them, and they don't, it seems like common sense, but you'd be surprised how many were not really aware of what the scene was behind them. And then they're on their webcam across, at one point we had almost 800 people virtually. And I will say that we had, I think 728 was 720 to 760 is where we waffled in our keynotes. So out of 800 people who registered, we had 750 people show up virtually, which was amazing to us. We were really excited about it. I'm gonna kind of wrap my content at this point. I will say, here's my main tips. Make it work for you, right? Identify what functions you need, find the right tool. So it needs to work, but it's okay if you make mistakes. We are on a learning curve here. So be patient with your event organizers as they adopt and integrate these tools a little bit more prevalently. Make it fun, passive engagement. Yeah, it's okay if we Netflix and chill, but when we're watching something, make it interesting. Make your sessions shorter to address the attention span of your ability to consume content on virtual versus in a large ballroom for an hour. Make it interactive when possible. And I think those are kind of the key things that I would say. There's a question here. I'm going to open it up to questions for about 10 minutes for those who want to stay on the line. We will send the recorded link out to everybody through our community. If you're not already, please go to toolkitevent.com and subscribe so you'll get all of our communications. We will push this recording out through that. We will also push a link to a document with all of today's information. Let's see, borders. Oh, differently in hindsight. I mean, the lessons learned, like I said, we've got speakers behind us that don't have a good backdrop. We had technology that wasn't working. And frankly, our virtual platform was also being stretched, and they were learning as they go to the volume that we had. And I mean, you're going to have tech issues. So be gracious, be responsive, be transparent. Those are just all things I would recommend. And have great backup plans. You know, it came up today, I came up with just the, you know, title slide here that said, program will begin in a few minutes. Seems very simple thing. I would have loved, I need to figure out how to put some music behind it. So watch us as we, Toolkit Tuesday, continue to add layers, and I'll call those out of best practices we're trying to use ourselves and share with everybody else. The chat room on your Zoom is open. Feel free to add some questions there. Again, we'll stay on for about 5, 6, 7 minutes. Hopefully you found this helpful, and we will continue to try to bring you great content weekly. See, and we have music because someone's whistling. So this is perfect. Lots of comments about good information. Again, you didn't have to write it all down. We'll send you the link with all the tips, the things that we learned by going live. Thanks for being on, Andrea, PK, Cheryl. Really appreciate you guys supporting our new venture here. Amy Wolf, I know you're on. We talked about Amy Wolf is in our community, and they do amazing promotional items. We're working on some really fun. I'll tell you another cool tip. One of our sponsors decided, if you do another virtual event, we want to send branded headphones to every attendee. And I was like, that's amazing. The other one was going to do
we can do that.
Huh? Yes,
we can do that.
I just thought it was such a creative way of a sponsor saying, okay, you're going virtual, we're going with you, and we're going to have people wearing the headsets with our brand on it, and we're going to write a really fun, can't wait to log on. I don't think I got into the sponsor bumper videos, but certainly you could do some really cool sponsor recognition through the virtual platform.
This is Andrea. I would say for those of you who are needing some solid ideas for MCs who are adept in the virtual space, because it is indeed a different skill set than live, I'm available to chat with you to direct you in the right way.
Excellent, thank you. We will put, Amy, Andrea, we'll put all your information as resources in this post, webinar, conference call, video chat. I don't know the terminology here. I'm old dog is learning a new trick. So, but yes, we'll put those resources for everybody. All callers are now unmuted. So if you guys want to chime in with a question, with a verbal question, go for it.
So Lynn, I have a question, and I may have missed this. You may have said that already, but in terms of delivery for the things that were recorded and for delivering that after, is that through the GoToMeeting platform, or do you have another platform that you're using? How are you delivering that to attendees? They
are delivering it through a back-end page on the state association website.
Okay.
So they are accessing the content through probably GoToWebinar, or they put it in a, in the cloud somewhere that they have, but gotcha. The user experience will be that they'll come with credentials because they've paid for the conference into the back end and then be able to view additional sessions. They also have the ability to click on there and show that they watched it so that they get their CEU.
Yeah. Oh,
and
good point.
Yeah. And thank you so much, Victoria, for joining us. This is amazing. Yeah. Thank you again. I really appreciate the support, and hopefully this will be helpful as you move forward. I think that, again, by nature, we're creative, we're resourceful, we are nimble, we're asked to figure out how to turn chicken into shrimp overnight, and we figure it out, so just don't be afraid to make mistakes. It's a new tool. If you've not had a lot of experience, lean on the pros that have done this for a long time. Lean on them to make sure you have a seamless solution for everybody, and get as educated on it as possible. I always think, I want to be an educated consumer. I want to understand what HDMI cable means, kind of. I don't have a lot of brain capacity, but I need to know that term. I would say the same thing with virtual. You need to know the terms, you need to understand live stream, webinar, video conferencing, get familiar with all of that. Take in as much information, particularly now with this all kind of locked in place. Take in as much information as you can to be a really educated consumer when you start using these tools. I appreciate everybody's support. And again, we're just trying to be as vulnerable as possible, putting it out there. We're going to make mistakes, but stay with us, and we'll continue to connect the community and bring great information. Have a wonderful week. Hang in there, everybody.